I'm going to talk basically about the performance. Actually, the performance I will perform during the lunch. It's like, I think it shows like a lot of the issues that come up when you make new instruments, and kind of explores like new borders we're running against, or that we're crossing out. This kind of
legislation.
Something is dropping off. So in the performance, what I'm doing is I'm exploring like the connections between like the sonic gesture and the theatrical gesture. And in this version, I'm using live coding, so adapting and writing the code live to explore these connections. Kind of a necessity where you.
Slideshow.
No, it should not. I should tell it to progress. So basically, what I'm doing, I'm changing these connections while I'm playing as part of the performance. On a practical level, that's for me a way to actually develop this. It's kind of showing the audience very clearly what I do. So it's showing the invisible part of these performances that use sensors and map it to sound. So I'm actually showing that process of development. So what the thing consists of is I have sensors, accelerometers on my wrist. I have a couple of buttons in my hand palm. At some point I added an additional sensor. It's actually not on the head anymore. I moved it to a necklace. And it measures my pulse from my earlobe. I've also added some LED lights for show effect. And I've developed a quite extensive code framework to do the live coding in. To show the progression of like the physical handheld things. There were like questions like, okay, I want to be able to reach the button, so it actually had to be very personal, because the particular way my fingers, well, the size of my fingers and how they bend and get to the hand palm. And that's where you also notice that your fingers are strangely weird. They're not all, yeah, like they're not symmetrical, and they are one finger bends differently than the other. So at first I just started just wrapping like elastic bands around my hand, putting buttons on it. And the first version, it was really hard to get it on. I confused myself all the time how to do it and to put the right one on the right hand. Then I improved it a little bit by making a strap from a piece of cloth and putting the buttons on there. And then the last step was to actually design PCBs. Actually PCBs which consist of one button and a resistor and a connector. And I actually had to do that twice because the PCB was too big in the first round. But now it's really nice. So I was figuring out how many buttons do I need, what do I map them to, how can I take it on and off easily. And the most important thing was I still needed to be able to type while I was wearing them, because I wanted to live code. And then I developed this code framework, like in between performances and also partly during performances. So I was designing some classes in SuperCollider to make the on-the-fly mapping easier. I was rehearsing with this code framework quite a lot to try it out and play, finding new sounds, also finding the limitations of the framework and adapting it again, and then also playing in front of an audience where you usually have a limited time in which you actually entertain people. After a while they want to do other stuff. So that also informed then again like what changes to make before the next round of rehearsing and designing. And there were a couple of times where I developed stuff and then realized, oh, this is actually not handy, so I had to throw it out again. Because actually, what I thought was enabling me was actually restricting me, or I forgot how it worked. That's also, and then also between the performances, I developed these new hardware devices or improved upon them and added them to the code framework to access them. So there was actually someone here at STEIM who saw the piece and he asked me, did you compose the piece? And I was like, oh, did you compose that piece? And I was like, well, is it a composition or what is it? Like, or is it an instrument or is it a performance? Like, what do you call this thing? Or what is what within the work? There's a discussion that John Bridges also has about the work that he does, where he's also workshopping with people. And he asked the question, where is the piece? Is that the whole process of making it, or is it the end presentation that we do, or is it everything together? Where is the piece? So I'm trying to make sense of this, and it's this weird thing where I do have some vague concepts of what is happening there. But I can't delineate like what is what. So I kind of have a sense that the composition is like putting together these controllers, the software, and kind of this vague concept that I have for like a timeline of what I will do during the performance. Even though there is a lot of improvisation happening, so maybe I'm also reinventing the composition each time. Like for each performance, deciding, okay, this time I'm gonna like start from a blank slate, or this time I already have some snippets that I'll take and adapt. So it's kind of the composition thing is deciding which elements are used. I guess there is some kind of notation in the sense of code snippets. There's a structure for events over time, although that's maybe mostly in my head. There's a concept for the performance. So I guess those elements could, like that part could be called the composition. Then the instrument, this notion, I guess it's a combination of the laptop, the different pieces of software that I wrote for it, the controllers that I made, and I guess the API into the code of the things, what I can change, or how I can change elements of the code. So it's like the physical elements that I'm actually holding in my hands and the software connected to them. So it's sort of defining the possibilities and also limitations that I create that define the possible behaviors that I can explore while playing or while engaging with the instruments. I'm just trying to find what could be a definition or description. And the performance of playing, I guess that's the performance is kind of the moment of playing in front of an audience. At least that's how I feel it. The rehearsing is, the preparation for that. And that's where I actually do like this quick alternation between gestural control and live coding. Working within a set time, so I have a kind of a certain amount of time where I play. I don't go on endlessly, but usually it's like 10-15 minutes, depending on how it goes. But also they were quite important in the development process because they are kind of the anchor points. They're the deadlines where I actually, like, oh, I'm performing later this week, I should rehearse and work on it. So they were very important in that sense. I think I'm getting hints there. Code is used in all levels. That's also what I guess makes it kind of hard to distinguish what's what. It's hard to say if it's part of a composition or the instrument, but it is really central to the creative process. That's where the decisions are made. And I think an important aspect is also that the code is not fixed. A lot of descriptions of instrument, the code seems like a fixed part at some point, and you don't change it anymore, and that's the instrument. But in this performance, I actually have no point where everything is really fixed, because I change it all the time. Does it matter? Well, for me, not really. I mean, it's enjoyable, it's rewarding, it's fun. But then, if you deal with the cultural apparatus, you sometimes get problems because, depending on the context, people don't always understand that development of code that is an essential part of the artistic creative process, that it actually informs the compositional instrument design choices that you make. For example, I saw one artist residency call where they explicitly said if you come with a team like programmers, like support people like programmers cannot be covered by this money. It's like, yeah, but they're essential. And also the amount of training in designing and writing, manipulating, working with code is quite comparable to learning how to play a traditional instrument. I've had situations where I was touring with a dance piece, and there actually was a question like, hey, can't you make it so that someone else can just run the show? It's like, well, no, I'm changing during the performance depending on what I see this dancer do. And there's all that skill, like if it had been a violin part, you would have looked for a violinist that would rehearse the piece and then be able to do it, but it's not you give it to the technician of the house and he can run it kind of deal. And just because there's a computer involved, people think that might be possible, but yeah, that's kind of what I want to throw in with this discussion.